Welcome back to Mamelody, where fairy tales come to life. Today, we're re-diving into the full story of one of the most beloved tales of all time, Cinderella. Long, long ago, in a faraway land, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. Her life was filled with joy as she lived with her loving father, who cherished her more than anything. But happiness can be fleeting. After some time, her father remarried a proud and cruel woman who had two daughters of her own. These stepsisters were as mean as their mother, and they were deeply jealous of Cinderella's sweet nature and radiant beauty. Tragically, Cinderella's father soon passed away, leaving her all alone in the world with her new, cold-hearted family. From that day forward, Cinderella's life turned into one of drudgery and sorrow. Her stepmother, no longer pretending to care, forced her to trade her lovely dresses for old tattered rags. Cinderella became the household servant, responsible for all the chores. She spent her days cleaning, cooking, washing, and scrubbing floors until her hands were raw. While her stepsisters lived in luxury and comfort, Cinderella was forced to sleep in a cold, dusty attic. Because she was always covered in soot and ashes from the fireplace, they cruelly nicknamed her Cinderella. Despite the constant hardship and unkindness she faced, Cinderella never allowed her heart to become bitter. She remained as kind and gentle as ever. She found friendship in the small creatures around her, the birds in the garden, and the little mice that shared her attic home. They became her only companions, listening to her songs and her secret dreams. Deep down, she held on to a glimmer of hope, believing that someday, her life would change for the better. One day, a wave of excitement swept through the kingdom. A royal messenger arrived with a proclamation from the king. A grand ball was to be held at the palace. The prince was searching for a bride, and every eligible young lady in the land was invited to attend. Cinderella's heart fluttered with hope. She politely asked her stepmother if she, too, could go to the ball. Her stepmother flashed a wicked smile and said, "Of course, you may go. But only after you finish all your chores and find something suitable to wear." This small spark of permission was all Cinderella needed. She worked tirelessly, all day and all night, scrubbing the floors until they shone, mending her stepsisters' gowns, and finishing every last task. With the help of her little mice and bird friends, she even managed to fix up an old dress of her mother's, turning it into something simple but lovely. When she finally presented herself, cleaned and dressed, her stepmother and stepsisters were shocked. They couldn't bear the thought of her outshining them at the ball. In a fit of jealousy, they laughed at her, tore her beautiful dress to shreds, and left for the palace, leaving Cinderella heartbroken and alone. She ran out into the garden, her dreams shattered, and began to cry. Her tears fell like raindrops onto the pumpkin patch. Just as she thought all hope was lost, a soft, shimmering light appeared, and a gentle voice spoke behind her. "Do not cry, my child. Where there is kindness, there is goodness. And where there is goodness, there is magic." Cinderella looked up to see a kindly woman with sparkling eyes and a warm smile. It was her fairy godmother. With a cheerful flick of her magic wand, she began to perform the most wonderful transformations. A plump pumpkin in the garden swelled and grew, turning into a magnificent golden carriage. The little mice became 4 majestic white horses, and a friendly rat turned into a coachman. But the most amazing transformation was yet to come. With another wave of her wand, her fairy godmother touched Cinderella's tattered rags, and they dissolved into a breathtaking ball gown that sparkled like 1,000 stars. And on her feet, she placed a pair of delicate, magical glass slippers. As Cinderella stared in wonder, her fairy godmother gave her a gentle but firm warning. "This magic is powerful, but it has a limit. You must leave the ball and return home before the clock strikes 12. At the stroke of midnight, the spell will break, and everything will return to what it was before." Cinderella promised she would remember. With a heart full of gratitude and excitement, she stepped into the golden carriage and was whisked away to the royal ball. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, a hush fell over the ballroom. Everyone turned to stare, captivated by the mysterious and stunningly beautiful princess who had just entered. Even her own stepmother and stepsisters didn't recognize her. But the one most enchanted of all was the prince. From the moment he laid eyes on her, he was smitten. He walked straight to her, bowed, and asked for a dance. They danced the entire evening, lost in conversation and laughter. It felt as if they were the only two people in the world. The prince never left her side, and for the first time in a very long time, Cinderella felt truly happy and free. She was so caught up in the magical moment that she completely forgot about the time. Suddenly, the deep resonant chime of the grandfather clock began to strike. 1, 2, 3. It was midnight. Cinderella's heart leaped with panic. Remembering her fairy godmother's warning, she gasped, "I must go." And without another word, she turned and fled from the ballroom. The prince called after her, but she didn't look back. She rushed down the grand marble staircase in such a hurry that one of her delicate glass slippers slipped from her foot and was left behind. There was no time to retrieve it. As she reached the bottom of the steps, the 12th chime rang out. The magic faded in a flash. Her glorious gown turned back into rags, the carriage into a pumpkin, and she was once again plain Cinderella, running home to her cold attic just before her stepfamily returned. The prince was devastated. The beautiful princess had vanished, leaving behind only a single, exquisite glass slipper. He was determined to find her. The very next day, he issued a royal decree. He would personally visit every house in the kingdom with the glass slipper. "The maiden whose foot fits this slipper," he declared, "shall be my bride." The prince and his royal guard traveled far and wide. Every young woman in the land tried on the slipper. They squeezed, pushed, and squished their feet, but it was no use. The slipper would not fit anyone. Finally, the search brought the prince to Cinderella's home. Her stepsisters, giddy with excitement, tried desperately to force the slipper on. One cut her toe, the other her heel, but their feet were simply too large. Her stepmother, knowing the slipper might fit Cinderella, tried to keep her hidden away. "There are no other young women here," she lied. But just then, the prince caught a glimpse of Cinderella peeking from the shadows. "And who is that?" he asked. The stepsisters laughed. "That's only Cinderella, the Cinder Maid." The slipper could never fit her, but the prince insisted that every maiden try. Cinderella was brought forward. She quietly sat down and slid her foot into the glass slipper. It fit perfectly, as if it were made just for her. As her stepfamily gasped in disbelief, Cinderella reached into her pocket and pulled out the other glass slipper, completing the pair. In that moment, the prince recognized her. He looked past the rags and soot and saw the same enchanting eyes and gentle smile of the girl he had danced with at the ball. True to his word, the prince asked Cinderella to be his bride. And in her boundless goodness, Cinderella forgave her stepmother and stepsisters for all their cruelty, choosing kindness over revenge. She left her old life behind and married the prince she loved. They ruled the kingdom with grace and compassion, and they lived happily ever after. And so, the story of Cinderella teaches us a beautiful lesson: that kindness, patience, and goodness will always be rewarded in the end. No matter how difficult or dark life may seem, never lose hope, and always, always have courage, and be kind.
Thank you for joining us on Mamelody for this timeless tale.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of our next fairy tale adventure. See you next time.